Watch and burn.
Hey everyone, so tonight I wanted to discuss Vangelis', I believe it's his 1990 album, The City. This is the one that Roman Polanski appears on a couple times because according to an interview I read with Vangelis a number of years back, Polanski was hanging around the studio nonstop and he just wouldn't leave, so Vangelis sort of conceded and agreed to put him on the record. I'm pretty sure it's Polanski who says the line about the morning papers. I believe that's at the end of Procession, if memory serves. I absolutely love Procession. Procession and Nerve Center are my two favorite tracks off this record. But I think my favorite thing about this record is how it sort of plays out as a whole, how each song is sort of married to the song before and after it, and you need to hear them all together in order to really kind of soak up the vibe of whatever city this is supposed to be about. I will argue that this record does give me a very heavy film noir vibe, a digital sort of synthesized film noir vibe. And for some reason, whenever I listen to this record, I always think of the movie Romeo is Bleeding with Gary Oldman. It's like, that's the city. The city that this soundtrack is from is the city that Oldman's character lives in, and he's trying to feed the whole and keeps cheating on his wife, and he ends up fucking his entire life up in the process. And that, for some reason, is always the movie, or maybe it's, well, no, specifically I do think of that movie, but this record does have a very heavy film noir vibe to it, or at least that's the way I've always sort of seen this album. And with tracks like Side Streets, Good to See You, Red Lights, it does sort of create like an all-encompassing vibe of being in a city. And I will say that at times the city does seem to be very dark and very like foreboding, sort of like the movie Dark City with Jennifer Connelly and Kiefer Sutherland. There's another movie I can kind of relate back to this record, actually. I never really liked that movie, but when I relate it back to this record, the two do sort of go together really well. But I think my favorite thing about this album is how fun and how catchy the songs are, and how even though this record, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was technically released in 1990, it sounds very much like Vangelis' 1980s works, and of course that would happen because 1990, although technically it's a new decade, this record was obviously written prior to 1990, which means it was still the 80s, so it's still going to sound like Vangelis going through his 80s period, because I found that throughout the 90s, he sort of hit this transitory period where things were shifting and turning so quickly for Vangelis that his 80s years were going to be left completely behind, and inevitably that is exactly what happened with the rest of his discography. He sort of abandoned this sound, and I'm cool with that because I like it when people are like forever evolving, and Vangelis is definitely somebody talented enough to keep evolving, but at the same time I absolutely love what he did in the 80s, and I hate that that is gone. As of, say, you know, Voices in around 95, this sound has been laid to rest. But it's kind of appropriate too that I'm talking about a record about sort of like a film noirish sort of off-feeling city, because where I drove to do these, this plaza is pretty much fully abandoned. I believe there's 2 stores still open and I'm out back. This is where the Walmart used to be, and the Walmart left a while ago. Usually that spells death for towns this size, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm standing at the loading bay for the Walmart, and the Walmart's gone, and this place is a graveyard. I am 100% by myself, and I was listening to this record in particular in the car while I was setting everything up, and it does sort of fit this place where I am right now. Behind me that way is nothing but trees. There's like a 50 or 60 foot drop into this big ass gully, and it's so overgrown. But apparently down there's a store, because back around 5 to 8, I heard a "we're closing at 8 o'clock" message come over the PA. I don't know what the hell store's back there. There's just trees, but apparently it's big enough to have a PA system. But yeah, I absolutely love this record, and I went completely off track, so I'm going to stop there. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a few minutes while I discussed Vangelis' 1990 album, The City. If you like this review, like always, don't forget to do something nice for somebody, and thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I really appreciate it. I will see you guys soon, because I have done a lot of these. Have a good night. I just wanted to say thank you for making it through the entire video. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to remind everyone one more time, even though I've probably already done this in the video that you just watched, to please click the like button as well as the subscribe button because it helps this channel grow. And thank you for hitting like and subscribe, and we will see you guys really soon.